The scent of old paper and ink filled his lungs one last time. For 58 years, Harold had lived a quiet life, tucked among the dusty shelves of the city library. Books had been his companions, their stories his escape, and their knowledge his comfort. He had never married, never traveled, never fought, and yet, in these silent stacks, he had lived 1,000 lives through the words of others. That evening, a strange tension clung to the air. A fire alarm blared suddenly, shattering the quiet sanctuary he knew. Flames lit the walls, consuming centuries of human thought, the pages curling and turning black. Panic surged, and Harold stumbled through the smoke, coughing violently. He thought of the manuscripts, the maps, the stories he might never touch again. Then darkness. Chapter 1. Awakening in the Emerald Forest, Harold opened his eyes. Or perhaps he didn't. The concept of eyes felt alien. His head was too large for his body. The air smelled of pine resin and damp earth, not smoke and dust. Something tickled his snout. He blinked no, more like a twitch in his vision. He was small, a sleek, emerald-scaled creature. Tiny wings fluttered awkwardly at his sides. A tail whipped instinctively, and sharp claws scraped against the mossy ground. He was a dragon. The forest around him was alive in ways he'd never imagined. Colors were sharper. The wind carried whispers he could almost understand. Birds watched him curiously. Leaves shimmered with an unnatural glow, and the scent of something magical lingered in the air. Harold stumbled on 4 legs, trying to orient himself. His memories of his old life were vivid, aching with nostalgia and loss. The library, the fire, the books, all gone. And now, he was a creature of scales and wings. Yet, within that shock, a strange thrill began to grow. The fire that ended one life had sparked another. A life that could breathe fire instead of smoke. Chapter 2. First Lessons of Survival. Days or maybe weeks passed in the forest. Time moved differently here. He wasn't certain he could trust his human perception anymore. Hunger gnawed at him, and Harold realized that dragon taste buds were very different from human ones. Leaves, fruits, small animals. He tried everything, often failing. But the forest was not without lessons. He discovered he could summon sparks from his mouth, tiny flames that gradually grew stronger with each attempt. One night, under a sky smeared with twin moons, he accidentally scorched a patch of grass. Startled, he realized the potential of the power that now coursed through him. A sudden rustle made him freeze. From the shadows emerged a creature part deer, part shadow, its eyes glowing with an unnatural red. Harold's heart raced. His instinct flared. Flames burst forth, clumsy but lethal. The creature screeched and vanished, leaving Harold panting. For the first time, he understood. This world was dangerous, and survival would not be a gentle scholar's game. Chapter 3. Allies and the Enigmatic Mage. One dawn, as mist curled around ancient oaks, Harold heard a voice. Interesting. A fledgling dragon with knowledge of the old world. From behind a crystalline waterfall stepped a woman clothed in robes that shimmered like starlight. Her hair was silver, her eyes a stormy violet. I am Lysera, she said, a mage who protects the balance between realms. And you are not an ordinary dragon. Harold listened, astonished, as she explained. Dragons of this world were rare, powerful beings. And he, though newly born, carried the spark of human wisdom. Something no dragon had possessed in centuries. Knowledge of strategy, reading, understanding. These would be his weapons as much as claws or fire. Lysera became his mentor, teaching him to control his flame, to communicate with forest spirits, and to harness magic that resonated with his mind, not just his body. Under her guidance, Harold grew rapidly, his emerald scales gleaming, his wings stretching, his mind expanding. Yet, not all were pleased by this sudden rise. Whispers carried through the forests. The old dragon clans murmured about a human reborn. A predator had awoken in their midst. Chapter 4. The shadow of the ancient dragon. One night, as Harold rested on a cliff overlooking the forest, a shadow blotted the stars. A colossal dragon descended, scales black as obsidian, eyes burning like molten gold. It spoke, its voice rumbling like an earthquake. You dare walk among the living, little one? Do you think your fragile human mind makes you worthy of scales? Harold trembled, but did not flee. Years of reading, thinking, analyzing strategy, and surviving had taught him that fear could be tamed. I may be small now, he said, voice shaking but resolute. But wisdom and courage are what make a dragon strong. The black dragon laughed, a sound like cracking stone. We shall see, fledgling. If you survive the trials, you may yet live. Fail, and this world will forget your kind. The encounter left Harold shaken.
This world was vast, brutal, and its history older than he could comprehend, but he had survived fire in one life.
Surely he could face darkness in another. Chapter 5. The bond of companions in his journey. Harold met others who would become his companions. Lysera, a rogue elf with a quick wit and sharper daggers. She taught Harold the value of cunning and improvisation. Bram, a half-giant warrior exiled from his clan, whose strength complemented Harold's intelligence. Miri, a timid spirit bound to a crystal, whose magic amplified Harold's powers and whose loyalty was unwavering. Together, they faced marauding goblins, corrupted beasts, and treacherous terrain. Harold's human mind allowed him to devise clever strategies, traps, ambushes, and misdirections that even seasoned warriors hadn't considered.
Through trials and losses, the bonds deepened.
He began to understand friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice in ways his old life had never offered. Chapter 6. Betrayal and the breaking point. As Harold grew in power and wisdom, the ancient dragon returned, this time allied with a faction of corrupted humans and creatures, seeking dominion over the forest.
During a mission to protect a sacred grove, one of Harold's companions was betrayed, leaving the group vulnerable.
Lysera fell to an assassin's blade. Harold's rage ignited in a torrent of fire, scorched claws shredding through enemy ranks. Yet, in the chaos, Bram was gravely wounded, and Miri was captured. Harold realized that wisdom alone could not prevent loss.
Pain, grief, and guilt became his teachers now.
He understood that leadership demanded sacrifice, that victory was not always unblemished, and that even dragons could mourn. Chapter 7. The Trial of the Obsidian Dragon. The final confrontation loomed. The black dragon, ancient and relentless, towered over Harold's modest form. Its power dwarfed anything Harold had faced. But Harold's mind was no longer the timid librarian's. It was sharpened by trials, fueled by compassion, strategy, and the memories of a human life that cherished learning over brute force.
The battle was monumental.
The forest trembled. Flames clashed with obsidian scales. Magic streaked through the sky. Harold used every lesson learned: misdirection, cunning, timing, and precise strikes.
He leveraged allies' strengths, turning even desperate moments into opportunities.
Finally, with a brilliant surge of fire and magical resonance, Harold struck the final blow. The obsidian dragon's roar echoed, fading into silence.
The threat was gone, but the cost was high.
Chapter 8. A new dawn. The forest was scarred, yet alive. Harold perched atop a cliff, overlooking the sun breaking through the mist. He had lost friends, but he had gained purpose. He realized that this world, though brutal, was vibrant and alive in ways the human library never could be.
Lysera approached, placing a hand against his scaled snout. You have grown beyond expectation.
Perhaps the worlds need dragons like you. Wise, courageous, and resilient. Harold looked at the horizon, wings stretching, heart steady.
He was no longer the man who had perished in a fire. He was a dragon forged by loss, knowledge, and perseverance.
The wind whispered through the emerald trees, carrying a promise. Adventures awaited, mysteries to unravel, and a world to protect. And Harold, the librarian turned dragon, would face it all, one calculated flame at a time. Epilogue. The library of the world at night, when the moons shone high. Harold would perch upon the highest peaks and read the world as if it were a book. Each leaf, each river, each star was a story.
Knowledge was not confined to pages anymore.
It was living, breathing, and ever-changing. He smiled, scales glinting in the moonlight, knowing that some stories never truly ended. They simply began again, in another life, in another form, in another world.